Hello and welcome to everyone listening to the Written in Melanin podcast, the place where you come to get your weekly dose of melanated creativity. I'm your host, CM Lockhart, an author of fantasy books featuring Black girls who aren't all that nice, and the owner of the Melanin Library, an online database of books written by Black authors. And in this space, I share with you everything I've learned on my journey as a Black and indie author. I'm glad you're here. And today, you guys, we have the amazing Rachel Howzell Hall on the podcast with us today. She is the author of 12 novels, including the upcoming thriller, What Fire Brings, and her first fantasy, The Last One. She is also the author of the best-selling novels, including What Never Happened, We Lie Here, and multiple award-nominated These Toxic Things and Now She's Gone. A two-time nominee of the Los Angeles Times Book Prize, a Los Angeles native, Rachel is a former member of the board of directors for Mystery Writers of America and was a featured writer on NPR's acclaimed Crime in the City series and the National Endowment for the Arts Weekly podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Rachel.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is, I think, my first podcast for this group of books. So thank you for inviting me on. I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here. I always love when people are like, oh, this is my first podcast for et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, me? Little old me?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate that. I'm glad. So that being said, since you said this crop of books, please, for our listeners who are not familiar with you and your work, introduce yourself.
So I am Rachel Howzell Hall. You said I am an LA native, and I write in my day. I have a day job where I write, and then in the mornings, 4:00 in the morning, I write some more. So I am constantly putting out books, and I love writing mystery crime thrillers. And 2 years ago, I was asked to write a Romanticy series, and though I've never written fantasy or romanticy, I said yes, because what do I like doing? Writing. And I was trying to find new ways of telling stories with subjects that interest me, that worry me, that make me excited. And though it was supposed to come out July 20th, the last one has been pushed to December 3rd, but I'm excited that I get to do more kind of lead up to it with great podcasts and talking to wonderful people like you. And also to give What Fire Brings some oxygen, because as we all know, Romanticy is a beast. Yeah. It's absolutely huge. And I'm happy to get to talk about this thriller that I've been writing that has been basically one of the two hardest books I've ever written in my life, that other one being, of course, The Last One. So I'm glad to have some space to talk about both.
Oh, wow. Honestly, I'm excited to talk about all of it. And there are so many things that you said in that I was just like, ooh, I have questions. I have questions. So for those who are tuning into the podcast, if this is your first time, we talk about the whole publishing journey from start to finish. And one of the things that you mentioned in all of the amazing things that you're doing is that you do still have a day job. Yeah. You still have a full-time job. So I was wondering, like, for you, especially you're 12 books in, right? How do you balance that? Because I know you mentioned 4 a.m. and in my mind, I was like, oh my God, that's an unholy hour. But also, like, how do you balance that? Because I know there are a lot of listeners who are still very much in, I have a full-time job. How do I make time for writing?
Yeah. Well, first and most importantly is my drive to just do it. I love this. I was born to write. I've been a reader all my life. And as someone who likes having money in her pocket and going to the grocery store and getting that smoked Gouda wheel and going on vacation and all these things, it's necessary for me to have another source of income. I'm also a mom. I've been married 28 years, and my daughter is now 20. When she was younger, it was way more expensive to have a kid because she was in swimming and 2 soccer clubs and private school and all this stuff. And living in Los Angeles, I needed to have a job. I'm blessed, though, to say that my day job is filled with purpose. Right now, I am a fundraising writer, science writer at Cedars-Sinai, which is the big fancy medical center where the stars go and have their babies and die, right? But so I...
Not and die.
In the end, when they're happy and have fulfilled everything they ever wanted to do, that's when it goes. But I get to get up and write proposals and reports about research and patient care to those people with means who can support our work here. And that's a great feeling, one, to have purpose, but also as a working writer, I keep that muscle, the writing muscle that you need to write whenever you don't even feel like it. Because the boss says I need a letter, I gotta write the letter. It doesn't matter if I'm not in the mood. It's my job. I need to write it. So having that kind of decisive, I gotta do this kind of attitude pushes me to get it done. And so far it's worked. A bunch of books have come out of this process. Saying that though, when do I find time to write with the kid? But fortunately she's not in college. But prior to that, the mornings were the only time really that I had that kind of time. I'm really not creative in the evening because my whole day is spent thinking of words and how to say things and telling stories. So 4 o'clock was as early as I could. Initially it was 5 o'clock, but that still wasn't enough because I needed to do the business of writing, returning emails and writing essays or whatever, all that stuff that's writing related. I needed time to do that. So 4 o'clock it became. And the house is wonderful and quiet. I don't have to take care of anybody. My brain is fresh. I go to bed at 9:18 every night.
And 18 is very specific.
Yeah, if I'm not in bed by 9:18, there better be some damn good problem. Something going on that keeps me there. Last night I didn't because my husband and I, we finished Baldur's Gate 3. It's a video game for those who don't play. And we started Diablo 3 again. 4. And so I needed to power up, and that pushed me to getting in bed at 9:24. So
Not 9:24. I thought she was gonna come through at like 10 or 11 o'clock. She said 9:24. I'm
9:24. Like, but I get up and then I write. I give myself the best words, and then I give Cedar Sinai the second best word. So it all works out. Meanwhile, I'm getting a check every other week. It's hard to be, at least for me, it's hard for me to be creative when I'm really worried about my foundational things, like how am I going to pay my kids' college tuition? So having a job really does help me with stuff like that. I have other things to worry about. So yeah, every day, it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, I only get so much time, so I write every day except Christmas Day and when I'm on like real vacation, Mm-hmm. I don't write. I get to read and play games and whatever. But yeah, I get up every day because it has to get done. And my books are big. The thrillers are 95,000 words. And the fantasy ended up being, after cutting it back from 200, 150,000 words. So that's some time. So I know what my path is, which means mathematically, I have to, these are the days I get and these are the hours I get. So 4 o'clock it is.
But there are so many good things in there that you mentioned that I feel like anyone listening to the podcast can really like sit with, at least even for me, because I'm not gonna words anybody else's mouth, but for me it's just also just kind of like that reality of it's really hard to be creative when you have to worry about your foundational things. And I'm not gonna get into psychology. I took one class in college and I was like, you know what, this is not my calling. Jesus, let me find something else to do.
I think we all did that. But, it's like, ooh, I did that with a linguistics class. I'm like, ooh, and it's like, oh, it sounds like math. I'm bouncing. Yeah.
It's definitely, it's something where it's like I feel like we're all on a like subtle level interested in psychology, but actually taking a psychology class in college is a completely different ballgame. But neither here nor there, right? The point is, when I took it, you kind of touch on things like the hierarchy of needs and such, and your creativity is at the very top, and that's after you have food and shelter and basic things like love. Like creativity is really like the top of, like, you get to that once you're secure in all those other places in your life. So I'm really glad that you touched on that and mentioned it, because I feel like, especially in this big old age of 2024, where inflation is a super real thing and the economy and the the job market is what it is, right? I think it's easy to be hard on yourself as a creative when you're like, oh, I should be doing X, Y, and Z. I should be writing. I should be creating. I should be putting out my next book. And it's just like, girl, you just had to figure out how to finagle $20 to get your groceries. It's totally okay if all of your brain power went to that and you did not have time to create an entire fantasy world. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's grace to be given.
No, and when we're writing about people. And if we're not around them, then you're not getting some of the good stuff, the refrigerator battles and who made fish or broccoli in the microwave. And I get to work from home now, but I do strangely miss that commute from home to work, because that was like my thinking time, my working problems out. It was dreaming awake kind of time that the commute gave. And so there is some value to that. Now, at this point in my career, am I ready to shuffle off the day job stage? Yes, I am. But there's something about it that really helps you creatively.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you say that, because I'm also the type of person, like I work from home. If I have things that I need to work out, I will absolutely just be like, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to drive. There's a coffee place that's a drive-through. You can't even go in. I'm just like, I have a destination. I'm just going to drive there and drive back just so I have a reason and a place to go. If you are listening to this, though, I also want to say, please be a responsible driver. Please do not be daydreaming while driving. That is also very dangerous.
Yes,
so,
yes, that
caveat
is.
to this. Please be safe.
And don't be writing on your Post-it notes with one hand down there. Only leave that to the professionals. Or do Siri. She's very good. I'm old, so I've had to make myself stop doing that. But use your time in your car wisely. There's liminal space is a wonderful place to figure out a lot of life. Yeah.
And I think that also leads to just having a space to just think, and thinking is part of the process. Really, so it's okay. It's okay if every moment that you sit down to write, it's not pen to paper cranking out thousands of words. Sometimes it's just playing with a thought. But I'm getting too comfortable with you, Rachel. I have questions I'm supposed to be asking you. So going back to question number 1, I wanted to ask you about your career as a whole, because like you said, you have a career. You are true to this. You are not new to this. And like, what has that been like over the course of your career, from like your first book to not just one book coming out with What Fire Brings, but 2 books?
Yeah, I know.
And switching genres. I know that you said that you were invited to write a romanticy. And so what was that?
It's been tricky. My first book was published on the first anniversary of 9/11, which was something in itself. And I had a big house. I was at Scribner. But it was very hard for me back in 2002 because of that absolutely horrid thing on September 11th. So there is no competition, especially when it's your first book, and it's a book about a Los Angeles Black family dealing with mental health. It's the total opposite of everything, right? And then I had an issue with the publishing industry itself. This was an era where East Coast Publishing had a specific idea of what the Black voice was. And coming from Los Angeles especially, even though I did grow up working class, my voice wasn't Black enough. And I have letters from editors saying that it wasn't either Black enough or urban enough, which is shorthand for that.
That's crazy.
Right, because it's like, I've been Black for all my life. But people...
It's like, check the mirror,
yeah,
still Black.
Still today. But it's hard for those who've never been here to understand Southern California, especially because we have the blue skies and we have palm trees and everyone looks fabulous. Even the ugly people look beautiful because of the lights. And so they don't think, oh, when you're poor, you're not poor. And it's like, yeah, if you saw Training Day, that's the neighborhood I grew up with. They're on my street. And so it was this constant battle of my voice and me trying to figure out, whoa, what is my voice beyond what color am I, which is a stupid conversation to even have. But what am I trying to say? And so my 30s was filled with figuring that out. I was 32 years old. Then the 30s is where you start kind of living, where things start to get hard. Your body starts kind of turning on you in some ways. Your parents are getting older. You're getting the house and the kid. The American dream is becoming the thing. And I was not getting a book deal at all because my stuff was either too upmarket, not down market enough. What is the story? What is your voice? It was hard. It was awful. On top of that, I was being rejected. I was pregnant with our first daughter, and I experienced cancer as I was pregnant with her. It was pregnancy where the estrogen drove the cancer. It was like this rare thing. And while that was absolutely awful, she was born healthy, but I had like lumpectomies and all these surgeries as I'm pregnant, as I'm trying to write. And since then, writing has been such therapy I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to write. And during that time, I wrote 2 self-published books. This is when Amazon came out with their self-publishing portal. And so those 2 books that I couldn't get published traditionally, I uploaded them into the self-publishing module. And what was important to me about that, with each of those, I was getting closer and closer to what I really wanted to write. And when UCLA Medical Center's like, let's put you in a high-risk breast cancer program because I had another episode, that's when I started thinking about my mortality, because it was a real thing. That cancer may take me out of here. So what is it that I want to do before that happens, if and when that happens? And that was at 37. First, and people have heard me say this before, getting a Mercedes-Benz, because it was supposed to be my 50th birthday present to myself. But here I am at 37, going through cancer care again. I may not get that Benz, so I'm going to get it now. So I did that. And then it was, I wanted to write something that was Terry McMillan's Waiting to Excel meets Walter Mosley's Devil in a Blue Dress. And even though I didn't have any kind of police experience or detective, any of that, I decided to do it because I'd done the scariest thing, which was being pregnant while facing cancer, and then being the mother of a young child while facing cancer. So I did. And that book was Land of Shadows, which was the first of my procedural series. And since then, I've been writing since 2014 straight, a book a year, and now two books a year. And it's impressive. It's crazy because my prayer was just for one book. After my initial, it was just for one book. And now here I am. I'm still learning, but getting to enjoy a career where I've met so many incredible people. I've told so many different types of stories. I've made my parents proud and happy to see that their investment in sending me to UC Santa Cruz to major in book club actually worked. I get to share what I know about writing and the process and trying to have this life and a marriage and parent them, all of it at the same time. And just sharing my fears and frustrations of being, especially a Black woman in America, trying to do something that's been kept from us for 1632 or whatever. I still hear no sometimes. It's not as loud and rude as my no's back when I was told I was not Black enough. But I've still been disappointed. But my disappointment is nowadays more of a blessing than like true disappointment. I didn't get that thing. Oh, okay, Rachel, get over it. Which I do. But I guess having people reach out to me to say, we read Rachel's stuff, would she like to do this and this? I never would have thought would have been a thing when I published my first book back in 2002. It's been a journey, and again, I am really blessed and happy that I have family and friends around me who support me, and that's important. I have people who are trying to write, and their husbands, well, now ex-husbands, are like, that's stupid. Why are you? That's a waste of time. I don't know what that is.
Definitely. That's definitely something to, I don't know, be discussed, because I am very fortunate to have a husband who is super supportive in what I'm doing. And, you know, I've talked to author friends who don't have that, or in some cases it's just indifferent. Like it's not support, or it's not support, it's not hate, it's just indifference. Like, that's a thing that you do, that's cool.
Which is almost as hurtful. It's like you just won't even commit to what it is you're feeling.
And I'm just like, I think it's such a privilege to be able to be like, no, my family, my friends, the people that I care about are also invested in this thing that I'm doing, even if they don't fully understand what it is or why I enjoy it. I was having a conversation with my dad very recently around Mother's Day, and my dad's not a reader, like, at all. That's one of his least favorite things to do. So even subtitles on the TV, he's like, take them off. I don't want it. But obviously, me being an author, we were having a conversation about it, and I was explaining to him about an anthology, and he was like, so what is an anthology? And I was like, basically think of it like a mixtape for authors. And his face was just like, oh, I get it. And we had a whole conversation about it. I was like, this is it. This is the feeling of like kind of like you said, like, I'm making my parents proud. Like, they understand what I'm doing. That's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Not you over here giving me emotions, man.
Well, I believe in all this. That's the thing. It's like, when I write, it's because I love it. And I will tell people who are interested in writing, if you don't love this, don't do it, because you're not going to get rich quickly. And if you do, you're going to get taxed at 40%. So you might as well love this. You will hear no.
40%.
Well, just to be safe. I should, just. And if you get to have some, it's like, yay, bro. It's not one where it sounds so easy and accessible, because we can all go to Staples and buy pens and pads and download Scrivener and all this stuff. But to actually push through and write draft after draft, you have to love it. You have to love books and appreciate art and understand the process and appreciate those who have done it. One of the most insulting things I've experienced in the last month was Apple's new iPad ad, where they announced the new thin iPad. Great. But then in the commercial, to prove just how important the iPad is, they destroyed pianos and saxophones and cans of paint and burnt and books and all this stuff, where they're destroying these incredible, important means of creation to prove that you don't need all that. It's all in the iPad. And us creatives are like, what are you doing? No, it should be the other way. This is serious. We believe in what we're doing. It saves so many of us. And art, in whatever form, is probably the most important thing we have to share stories, to share ideas, to share culture, to take us away from those things that bring us woe and worry every day. So, yeah, that's just I believe in this. In other words, reiterate the emotion, because, it's important to who we are as humanity and our personal who we are as who we are.
I agree 100,000%, because I think there is something to be studied about the fact that as authors, as writers, I have not met a single one who, even if they prefer typing on a computer or iPad or whatever, they still have drawers, notebooks, shelves full of notebooks, and they have their favorite pen, and they have their preferred brand of paper. Like, it's still something inherently manual about it, that connection piece to it. And I also know musicians who are like, you can recreate a sound for sure using technology, but there's also something magical about sitting in a room with someone playing the guitar and the keyboard and just having a session. And I think that is something that, as we enter this future age of technology, because as I've said on a previous episode of the podcast, if you guys are listening, when Celeste Hart was on, we talked about AI. I feel like it kind of comes down to the same thing as how the escalator did not replace the stairs. It's just another mode of transportation. I feel like AI is going to be exactly like that. It's going to be a broom versus a vacuum cleaner. Like, there's still moments and situations where you're going to reach for a broom instead of a vacuum cleaner. There are going to be moments where you take the stairs instead of the escalator.
Right. It's a resource. It should be the thing that helps clean up, not create.
Exactly.
Anytime a piece of software tells you spelled something wrong, that's AI, right?
Yep.
And I like Google Gemini, which is their brand of AI, because I treat it like I treat Google. But it just hones in the answer more for me than anything. And I use it as a tool, not as the thing that creates the thing that I love doing, which is creating, which is writing. And as hard as it is, I don't want anything. There's nothing like human emotion. A robot knows nothing about despair or heartbreak or loss. And you can read something and it will be flat because they don't know anything about it. So yeah, I love that analogy with the stairs and the elevator. Both elevator and escalator.
Yeah.
There is no replacement. I'm going to use that just to let you know. I'm going to use it.
Feel free to take it. I didn't come up with it either. I took it from my friend Celeste. It's a tool, and I think it's something to be seen and monitored. And as with all things, it's here. It's not going away. You don't have to love it, but knowing what it is and how to use it as a tool is also, I think there's benefit in that. But we are not going to get down this rabbit hole of AI.
No, because you're still back on question 1.
We have made it to question 2.
Hey, look at us.
We have made it to question 2. So you're going from thriller to romanticy, or fantasy romance for those of you who are new to the lingo. And I know that, again, you mentioned being asked to do that, but what was that like? Because I know that had to have been a slightly different process when tackling it, if nothing for the fact that one, you said it was like 90,000 words, and then one was like 200,000 words that you had to cut down. So what was that like?
So July on a Friday, it always happens on a Friday for me. July on a Friday in 2022, where my agent calls me and says, hey, I have this opportunity. And the first time she did that, it was with James Patterson to work with me on a novella, which I did. And so this happened again. And whenever Jill, who's my agent, does things like that, it's like, okay, what interesting thing is this? And this was the most interesting because she had been trying to get me to find some type of project to work with Elizabeth Pelletier, who is the publisher of Red Tower books and Entangled, which was the imprint before Red Tower. And Liz was launching this new imprint, Red Tower, where it was these high concept romanticies that would have the sprayed edges and all this beautiful foil and blah, 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 blah. And Liz wanted to know if I was interested in writing a romanticy series. And not even knowing what that was, because I kill people in my books. I did it. But I knew who Liz was. And I also knew, like I said earlier, that fantasy romanticy is a giant. It's a beast in the room. And that this may be the thing that launches my career even higher and brighter. And Jill, my wonderful agent, would never steer me wrong. So I said, yes, I'll do whatever this thing is that you just asked if I was interested in doing. And then Liz called me, and we talked for 3 hours or so about her dreams of running this new imprint, video game, story, shoot a game or two. One of the most, if not the most brilliant woman I've ever talked to. It was an incredible experience. And so I started writing the last one, which was going to be The Witcher meets N.K. Jemisin.
Ooh.
So, yeah. And so Witcher 3 I was playing at the time. So it's like, I get this. I understand this. And so I started. And it's hard. Even though I have written so many books, learning a new genre, especially learning it on the job, it was hard. Where thrillers are they move. This was different because I needed to do world building. For crime, you don't. The world is the world. The law is the law. You break it, you go to jail or whatever. In this, I'm God. And that means everything, creating everything. And I thought I could get away with writing 120,000 words worth of this romanticy. And then it's like, no, we need more. You need to build this world some more. And romance. You need some romance in something called a romanticy. And I don't write romantic thrillers or suspense. So I had to go back again and then again to do both. And I think I did it really well, especially under her guidance. And the guidance was my editor, getting me to understand that I am responsible for it. It took me some time because what I typically write is very real and on the ground. And I'm used to crime scenes, not sex scenes. So they helped me this entire time figure out how to do this thing. fortunately, knowing how stories should be, I didn't have to learn that. So I'm glad that when I finally did get it, I did get to go back and add my voice to it, because my voice can be peculiar sometimes. But I was also glad and relieved to know that I could still talk about very real things that angered me, that scared me, that were always interests of mine, especially being a child of the church, that I wanted to talk about. And with fantasy, I could actually talk about religion and politics and who gets to decide what for how many people and who gets to live. That kind of like big thinking that thrillers, you kind of are constrained. So I finally, yes, with the world building, that's when the book grew from 120,000 words to 200,000 words, which is just way too much, especially for a debut. I am not George R. Martin. No one's going to sit and read that.
I would actually. I'm volunteering.
Oh, okay, so maybe around book 4, I'll have some license to just go on and on. But it was fun because
Absolutely.
I didn't know this world, and seeing it and fully realizing it, it was such a thrilling thing. And again, I'm blessed to not only have this opportunity, but to have such kind of like a high profile at doing it. Red Tower, the debut novelist was Rebecca Yarros, who wrote Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and she's still on bestseller lists right now for her books. And what a hell of a launch that was for the rest of us who are coming behind her on the Red Tower imprint, because I have a 2-sentence blurb and my pre-orders have been crazy. Part of that is the Rebecca Yarros effect, but I think some of it is also people like my thrillers, and so they're like, well, I like those stories. I'm sure she's just as weird and strange with crazy, twisty things in this one, so click, I'll pre-order. At least that's how I'm hoping it goes.
Oh, I've definitely met some readers and some people who were like, they were excited about your fantasy simply because they enjoyed you as an author.
Aww.
And they were like, this is an auto-buy author for me, so absolutely gonna go get the last one. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Hey. That's amazing. And I was like, oh, by the way, I get to talk to her. A little flex.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be really fun. It's a gorgeous book, first of all, aesthetically. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is. If you guys have not seen it, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
I'm gonna be a little nervous with my mom reading this one. It's funny, murder. Oh yeah, mom, read this one. But now it's like, I know these things. And it's not out and out like Zane or anything like that, but it is.
Yeah.
It's poetic and it's licentiousness. I hope.
Yeah. It's spicy. It is. It's got a little seasoning on the pages.
Yeah, and the main character Kai, I absolutely love her. She is in the pantheon of Rachel Howzell Hall heroines, and I can't wait to write more about her. I really, really do love her.
I'm excited about the book. So, slight plug, because you guys know that I live in the fantasy realm. I'm super excited about the last one. So go pre-order it, do the thing. Make sure that Rachel hits all of the bestseller lists.
Please. And I'm already putting a pin in this. We'll talk again when it's time for it to come out, because by then you will probably have read the arc, and I'll make sure that you get an arc. Yeah. Yes.
No promise me things.
Dude, I'm serious. I'm serious. I will make sure you have one. And I want to talk to you again.
Okay, well, this is on record.
Yes.
So y'all can be ready for when Rachel comes back on the podcast and we get into the nitty gritty of her fantasy Romanticy series, and it's going to be amazing. Yes. It's going to be amazing. I'm already excited. We haven't even finished this interview. I'm already excited for the next one. Okay.
We're fine. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I guess with that being said, obviously your career has changed and it is still changing. It's still growing, which I'm excited to hear all of this, because as someone who talks to a lot of the authors that I talk to are very much still at the beginning of their career. Their debut or their sophomore book just came out, and there are lots of things that they want to achieve, but those are still like in the distance. But you've already achieved so many things, and it's still growing, and it's still like changing and flourishing. And I love to hear it, because there's also this, I don't know why, prevalent idea that once you do something and you've been in it for a while, like you're no longer in the spotlight, you're no longer the chosen one for whatever reason. So I love that you're sharing how you still love this and you're still passionate about it and your books are still amazing and you're still doing this. You're not doing just one, you're doing two, and you're crossing genres and you're meeting amazing people and getting blurbs and doing all the things. And it's just like, it's a reminder that like when you are really true to this, really passionate about it, like these things are actually a part of your journey. They continue to come. It's not a one and done thing. It's not like a firework where you just go off and then boom and you're brilliant for a moment and then people forget.
Yeah.
Like, no, like there's real benefit and grounded reality.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's always, I mean, if you ever meet a writer who says they're bored, they're lying about being a writer, because there's always something new to learn. And I'm a constant student of the world. I was with my siblings in Vegas a few weeks ago, and two of them live there, but we were doing this hike in Red Rock Canyon, which is, you know, gorgeous. And there was this plant the tour guide pointed us to that he said the native population back in the day would eat the nuts, and it's like a desert almond or something, but don't eat the leaves because the leaves contain cyanide. And I'm like, cyanide, huh? Cyanide kills.
Not you picking up stuff.
But it's like, oh, this is yet one more way. I know it sounds awful, but as a crime writer, this is yet one more way to advance a narrative of death. And it was very exciting for me to learn one more thing about that thing that I love. So yeah, there's always so much more to make your work exciting, to make your life exciting, to throw readers off sometimes because they don't know some things, and so they learn while they're reading your books. And that's how I like reading. I like reading stuff where I get to go into a room and say, did you know? I like that.
I love it. And I hope you guys are watching this on YouTube, because her facial expression at that moment was priceless.
Oh, I love it.
But no, I know exactly what you mean. It's like you want to read something that gets you excited, that keeps you like invested in having a good time. And having a good time as the author leads to people having a good time when they're actually reading it. And that is I don't want to say the magic of writing, but like when you know that you've written something and you're like, I'm having a good time. I know what happens. I've written this. I know what happens 3 books from now, but I'm still excited about this one.
Did you get to that part where? Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. So I guess the question that I have is like, over the course of things, how have you changed throughout this career? Like, how has doing all of this changed who you were at the beginning to who you are right now?
I've always been impatient in something. I'm very organized. I like have lists everywhere and Post-its with lists. So I'm one who likes to cross things off, and that hasn't changed. But what has changed is patience. When I cross things off, it's like, what next? What's the next thing I need to do? And while I'm still like that, when something doesn't go my way, I allow myself to mourn for a moment. And then I try and find what lesson I can learn from this. Instance, the last one, publication date. Yes, I want this book out so bad. And it's been pushed back twice. And there have been a few people on Goodreads who've given me 1 star because the book is not out yet. And it's like, dude, I am not responsible for publication calendars, but whatever. That's crazy. But having a dream deferred has taught me things happen for a reason. I've always known that, but it's something to know it and to then experience it. And because it's been pushed back, so many other things have happened because of that. So learning that kind of patience, learning to stop and look around and appreciate it in the moment, because I will have something great happen to me and it's like, that's awesome. Now what am I supposed to do over here? And I'm not appreciating it. And so my family has helped me do that, to focus and savor and all the rest of it. And also I've grown as a person. I've experienced grief in ways that I had not. In the past, in 2022, it started with my father-in-law passed. Well, first my daughter college. She's the only. So empty nest. September. October, my father-in-law passes. Thanksgiving of that year, our golden retriever dies. January 2023, my mother-in-law passes. And then this past September, my father died. And so...
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So going through that constant trying to arrange things and trying to manage emotions and trying to push past the brain fog that comes with grief, I've never had to do that except for these last 2 years. And it was hard. What fire brings was so hard for me to write. It was the first time in my entire writing career that I asked for an extension on a deadline. I have hit every deadline, sometimes coming in days early. If that's how focused I am. But with this, and this being probably the twistiest story I've ever written, I couldn't do it. There were months where it's I'm staring at the page and I'm writing, but I am not looking at the words. It's rote at that time. And so learning to ask for grace where I never had to, asking people to be patient with me when I never had to, that was new for me. And knowing just how frustrating and scary and all the emotions come with grief, folding that into my writing was something that I didn't have before. And it became a tool. Because writers, we mine everything. We take everything and turn it into our art. And experiencing all that in such concentrated amounts of time, it made me grow up in a way that my own mortality did not. So that primarily was the biggest thing. Also, being the mother of a young woman changed me. I tend to write stories that reflect my life, my friends' lives, us 54 now-year-old women or whatever. Now that I worry about her, my lovely daughter who has a daddy who will do anything for her and a mama who will do it twice, I still worry. And as someone who writes crime, I'm surrounded with the bad things that can happen to people. And so being a mom has changed me a lot. And all of it just makes my writing, I think, more vulnerable for me, but more authentic for those who read my stories. They know that I felt that. When I wrote that, I meant it. I'm not here. Yes, I'm here to entertain, but I'm here to provoke and to evoke and to share and to heal and to grieve together, because crime, there's a reason we all read it. There's a reason why there's CSIs and Law and Orders and true crime channels and all of it, because it affects us. If it doesn't affect us directly, it affects our community, it affects our family. And I think we're all trying to figure out what this is and how we can get through it. And I think as more of these types of things happen to me, as the sandwich generation, college kid on one hand and Asian parents on the other, I'm getting a lesson that you don't get to learn until you're in it. Meanwhile, I'm getting gray. I have gray hair. And about a month ago, I was getting up from my dining room table on a Friday night and I sprained my knee. I have to go to the emergency. I have to go to the emergency room. I'm just getting up from the table. It's what the hell is this? Seriously.
What happened?
I got up.
What happened?
I got up from the table. Dude, I got up from the table. And so I couldn't extend it like this. I could extend it like this, but I couldn't go back. So I tried to ice it and everything. But at 1 o'clock on that early Saturday morning, I tapped my husband. I was like, we got to go to the emergency room. This is just way too painful. Who would have thought? Standing up would have. I know.
That was the thing that did you in.
It did me in. And so all of this is folding into what I'm writing. And once again, life is not a boring place. This is not. I didn't come to play. I came to slay. And I'm going to fold all of this into what I'm writing, because life just doesn't stop. There's no stop date for books. And so I'm taking advantage of everything, including I'm very mindful standing up now. I don't take standing up for granted, which is wild. It's wild. So.
But no, I mean, that's a real thing, and it's about experiencing life in such a way that when you write, like you said, you're always mining for content. There's always something to pull from. As long as you're living, there's always something to write about. And having that experience and being able to, it's in the back pocket for when you're ready to pull from it. But we are coming up on an hour, so there are a couple of questions that I like to ask everyone who comes on the podcast.
Okay.
The first one being that if you could have your work have any lasting effect on your readers and you could choose what it was, what would it be?
Say that again. If I could have...
Okay, let me word it a little bit differently. If you could choose what lasting effect your work will leave on people, what would it be?
Honest. I want folks to say, oh yeah, I read that and I felt it because she wasn't trying to trick me. Like, I like twists, but I like to earn my twists. I like being provocative, but I like it being organic. I like telling the truth about some things, which sometimes can be hard for me to understand and to accept. And I want readers to also kind of struggle with their own, whatever topic it is that I'm talking about, looking back on their lives and saying, that's, I know what that means. I know what that is. And I don't want to talk about it right now, but I know I eventually have to. And that only comes from being honest. I want people to say, yeah, what she wrote really, it hit here because it wasn't just song and dance. It wasn't entertainment. It was ministry in some way.
I love that. I love that. Okay, and last question, and we have 10 minutes before we have to wrap this up for sure, so we gotta keep it succinct. What writing advice would you give any new authors who are just now starting out on their author journey?
Put your butt in the seat and write. That's the only way it happens. Yeah, sit down and write it. No more, no less.
Facts. No, I love it though. I love it. So, I mean, I can't add anything to that. That is the crux of writing a book. You have to write it. So
yeah, because everything else comes after you sit down and prepare to write it.
Yeah. So that is your wisdom for today, folks. Please take it to heart. And Rachel, if you could please let the folks know where to find you on the interwebs, I will take us out.
Sure. www.rachelhowzell.com or Twitter, because I'm never going to call it the other one, at Rachel Howzell.
I love that we acknowledge that Twitter will always be Twitter and we will not call it anything else. That is facts. That being said, you guys, there will be a link in the show notes or description box wherever you are listening to this at. And that is it for this episode of the Written in Melanin podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast, then please share it with someone you think may enjoy it. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/writteninmelanin, or grab a copy of my books from my website, cmlockhart.com, or you can get them from Resist Books in Petersburg, Virginia. There are links in the show notes for everything, and thank you guys again so much for listening. Until next time, I hope all your books are full of melanin.